Sit down and zip it. Those were my words, spoken to a boy who couldn't have been older than 12 years old, standing in my courtroom with his chin raised and his eyes cold, like he had already made up his mind that this place didn't matter. Like I didn't matter. I have sat on this bench for a very long time. I have watched Arrogance walk through that door wearing many different faces. Grown men in tailored suits, women with attorneys who charged more per hour than most families bring home in a week. I have seen every variety of disrespect. The quiet kind that slips in unnoticed. The loud kind that announces itself the moment it crosses the threshold. But never, not once in all my years behind this bench, had I seen it arrive wrapped in a school backpack and a pair of pristine sneakers that likely cost more than some people's rent. This is my courtroom, and the day that boy walked in, I had absolutely no idea that the hours ahead would leave every single person in this room holding their breath. If you believe that respect has no price tag and no age exemption, that no child, regardless of his father's bank account, gets to walk into a court of law and speak down to a judge, then stay right here. You are going to want to see exactly what happens next. And if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button, because the stories I bring you are the ones that don't leave you easily. The morning had started the way most mornings do. My bailiff was at his post by the door. The gallery was already filling up. Families sat stiffly in their seats. A few people leaned toward each other, whispering behind cupped hands the way people do when they are trying to appear composed but are anything but. The room carried its usual smell of aged wood and fresh paper, the way it always has, the way it always will. The first case was called. Walking toward the defendant's table was a boy, a child, 12 years old, maybe 13 at the very outside. He wore a cream-colored polo shirt with a small embroidered logo on the chest. His trousers were pressed with military precision, the kind of crease that doesn't happen in a home laundry, that happens at a dry cleaner that bills by the fold. His sneakers were a blinding white without a single scuff. His hair was trimmed close and neat. He looked like he had been styled for a catalog, like a child who had never once in his young life been told that the answer was no. Walking beside him was a man I took to be his father. Tall, broad, dressed in a deep navy suit with a gold watch on his wrist that caught the courtroom light every time his arm shifted. He had the kind of face that was used to being obeyed, not because he had necessarily earned that deference, but because money had long made obedience the path of least resistance for everyone around him. He didn't look at me when he entered. He surveyed the room first, slowly, the way someone does when they are mapping who matters and who doesn't. He cataloged it. Then he sat. He still had not looked at me. That was his first mistake. There would be others. Across the room sat a woman named Gloria. She was 53 years old. She walked with a slight limp, the lasting consequence of a car accident 3 years prior that had left her with chronic pain in her left knee. Pain she managed every single day without complaint and without anyone offering her anything extra for doing so. She worked the early shift at a bakery 2 blocks from the bus line. She was there at 4 in the morning while the city slept. She made sandwiches and pastries until noon. She earned $11.50 an hour. Gloria was in my courtroom because on the morning of October 7th, the boy had ridden his bicycle through a crosswalk at full speed and struck her directly. She had been walking to catch her bus for work. The impact had thrown her completely off her feet. She had scraped both palms on the pavement. She had bruised her ribs so badly that breathing felt like being stabbed for 4 full days. She missed work. She lost nearly $200 she couldn't spare. And her phone, the old device she used to check bus times and stay in contact with her daughter, had shattered on impact. Gloria did not look angry when she sat down. She looked tired. The deep kind. The kind that doesn't come from one restless night, but from years of early mornings and long hours and not quite enough in between. She held a folder of documents in her hands and kept her eyes on the table in front of her with the quiet, unshakable dignity of a woman who had nothing to prove to anyone in this room. I addressed the boy calmly, the way I always do. Because calm is not weakness. Calm is authority. Good morning. Do you understand why you are here today? He glanced at his father first. Before a single word had left his mouth, he was already looking for permission. Then he looked back at me. Yeah, he said. It was an accident. Not yes, ma'am. Not good morning, Your Honor. Not even the basic courtesy of a complete sentence. Just, yeah. His father smiled faintly as though his son had answered perfectly, as though this was exactly the child he had set out to raise. I let it go. For now, I asked Gloria to describe what had happened. She spoke quietly and precisely. She told me about the crosswalk, the early morning light still dim, the sound of wheels moving fast before she had any time to react. She told me about lying on the pavement, trying to breathe and not being able to. She told me the boy had not stopped, that he had looked back at her once, looked her directly in the face, and kept riding. No pause. No, are you all right? Just gone. I watched the boy while Gloria spoke. He was looking at his phone beneath the table. If you know anything about me, you know there are few things that clear my patience out of the room faster than someone checking a screen while another human being describes being injured. It tells me everything I need to know about a person in approximately 4 seconds. Marcus, my voice was level. Put that phone away, now. He looked up slowly, with the energy of someone performing an enormous personal favor, and slid the phone into his pocket as though he expected gratitude for it. His father leaned over and whispered something in his ear. Sir, I looked directly at him. Do not coach your son during testimony. I will not repeat that. His jaw tightened. He sat back. That was the first crack in the polish. There would be more. And if you are watching this right now and you can already feel where this is going, if your chest is already tightening, hit that subscribe button now, because what is coming next is going to make everything you've heard so far feel like the opening act. The second confrontation came roughly 20 minutes in. I asked Marcus directly whether he had looked back at Gloria after the collision. He shrugged. A full theatrical couldn't-care-less shrug. I saw her get up. She was fine. She was not fine, I said. She missed 4 days of work. She had bruised ribs. She lost money she could not afford to lose. He said without a single flicker of hesitation, that's not my problem. The gallery stirred immediately. A woman near the back made a sound, not quite a gasp, but close. My bailiff straightened. I could feel the temperature of the room shift the way it does when something has been said that cannot be pulled back. I kept my voice completely even. It became your problem the moment your bicycle struck her in a legally protected crosswalk. I then introduced the first piece of evidence, a printed still from the city's traffic camera mounted at the corner of the intersection. The image showed the bicycle entering the crosswalk well above any speed that could be considered safe near pedestrians. In the frame, Gloria could be seen mid-fall, her folder of papers scattering in the air around her. The timestamp read 5:37 in the morning. I placed it in front of Marcus. He studied it for a moment with the expression of someone who had already rehearsed their response before seeing the evidence. That could be anyone. His father leaned forward immediately. Your Honor, the image quality is... I raise my hand. Sir, you are not presenting a case. You are here as a guardian and a witness. Please wait until you are addressed. He went silent. His eyes, however, were doing considerable talking on their own. I turned back to the boy. Is that you in the image, Marcus? He crossed his arms, sat back in his chair, and said, My dad says I don't have to answer that. I looked at that boy for a long, unhurried moment. Your father is correct that you have certain rights. But I want you to understand something, and I want you to truly hear me. This is not a game. This is not a television program. This is a real courtroom, and that woman sitting across from you is a real person who was hurt. The fact that you are 12 years old does not change that. The fact that your father wears a gold watch does not change that. The fact that I am a woman does not change that. Are we clear? Marcus glanced at Gloria. Then he looked away. And then, without being asked, without invitation, without a single moment of self-awareness, his father spoke. Judge, I think it would be helpful for you to understand who you're dealing with here. He said it pleasantly, as though this were a dinner table and he was offering useful context to a new acquaintance. I serve on the City Development Board. I know the mayor personally. I think it's in everyone's interest to resolve this quietly and quickly. The room went very still. I looked at him. I looked at him for a long, deliberate moment before I said a word. Sir, my voice was completely calm. If you have followed this courtroom for any amount of time, you know that calm for me is not necessarily a sign that everything is fine. I want you to listen to me carefully. The mayor's name means nothing in this room. The development board means nothing in this room. The watch on your wrist means nothing in this room. The only things that carry weight here are the truth and the law. And those two things are exactly the same for you as they are for every single person who has ever walked through that door. Do you understand me? He held my gaze. 1 second. 2. Then he looked down at the table. Second crack, wider this time. The second piece of evidence came from Gloria's phone records, specifically a timeline her daughter had helped reconstruct. At 5:45 that morning, Gloria had sent a message saying she was heading to the bus stop. Her next message was sent at 6:22 from the sidewalk, saying she had been knocked down and could not stand up straight. Her daughter had come and taken a photograph. That photograph had been submitted to the court. In it, Gloria's palms were bandaged. Her coat was torn at the shoulder. She was sitting on the curb with her eyes closed and her head tilted slightly back, the way a person looks when they are trying very hard not to break down in front of strangers. I showed it to Marcus and watched his face the entire time he looked at it. Does this look like someone who was fine? He looked at the photograph for approximately 2 seconds. And then he said, and I need you to really sit with this, she looks dramatic. A woman in the gallery gasped audibly. My bailiff took one deliberate step forward. Gloria did not react. She did not flinch, did not turn her head, did not move. She kept her eyes forward with the kind of quiet, unshakable dignity that takes a lifetime to build, the kind that cannot be bought, cannot be inherited, and clearly had not been passed down to the boy sitting across from her. Marcus, I said, I am going to give you one more opportunity to show this court some character. One more chance to demonstrate that there is something inside you worth investing in. He said nothing. He stared at the table. And then came the moment that silenced every single person in that room. His father leaned back in his chair, folded his arms across his chest, and looked at me with the flat, unhurried expression of a man who had decided this had all taken far too long. Marcus, watching him, absorbing every signal the man was broadcasting, rose slightly from his seat, raised his finger, pointed it directly at me across the bench, and said, "You're just some old lady in a fancy robe. My dad owns half this city. You can't do anything to us. We'll be out of here in 10 minutes, and you'll still be sitting in this little room pretending you matter." 10 seconds. That is how long the silence held after those words left that child's mouth. 10 full seconds in which no one moved, no one breathed. The woman near the back, who had gasped before, was completely motionless. My bailiff had both hands at his sides. My clerk had stopped typing. The only sound in the room was the low, steady hum of the overhead lights. I did not raise my voice. I did not reach for my gavel. I sat back slowly in my chair, and I looked at that boy. Really looked at him. And what I felt in that moment was not what you might expect. It was not anger. I have felt real anger in this courtroom. Righteous anger. This was not it. What I felt was sorrow. Deep, genuine, bone-level sorrow. Because behind those hard eyes and that pointed finger and those spotless sneakers was a child. A 12-year-old child who had been taught deliberately, consistently, over years by the man sitting right beside him that the world was something you purchased your way through, that people only mattered if they had leverage, that accountability was for other people, that a judge in a modest courtroom was nothing more than a minor inconvenience between him and the parking lot. And I understood in that moment that what happened next was not simply about a bicycle and a crosswalk. It was about what this boy was in the process of becoming. Right now, if you are a parent watching this, or if you believe that how we treat people when we think we have power over them says everything about who we actually are, subscribe to this channel. Share this with someone who needs it, because what I am about to say to this boy is something I have wanted to say for a long time, and I want the world to hear it. Marcus. I said his name slowly. His finger was coming down. Slowly. Sit down. He sat. Marcus, I want you to listen to me. Not to your father, not to anyone else in this room. To me. Can you do that? He didn't answer, but he was listening. I have been reading people in this room for a very long time, and I could tell beneath all of that performance, beneath everything that man beside him had coached into him, he was listening. You told me I was just some old lady in a fancy robe. You're right that I've been around a long time. And do you know what sitting in this room for all these years has taught me? It has taught me that the people who walk in here certain they own the world are almost always the ones who understand it the least. You said your father owns half this city. Let me tell you something about this city. This city is built by people like Gloria. People who are up at 4 in the morning when it is dark and cold and the rest of the world hasn't stirred yet. People who don't have gold watches or board seats or attorneys on speed dial. People who make sandwiches and ride the bus and show up every single day, not because anyone is going to applaud them for it, but because that is who they are. That woman sitting across from you did not ask to be knocked down in a crosswalk. She did not ask to lose $200 she could not afford to lose. She did not ask for bruised ribs that made it painful to breathe for 4 days, but she got all of that because of you. You look back at her, Marcus, the footage shows it. You looked back, you saw her on the ground, and you kept riding. I need you to think about that choice. Really think about it, because that choice says something about you that I don't believe you meant to say. His father started to speak. I didn't look at him. Sir, I will get to you shortly. Right now, I am speaking to your son. I turned back to the boy. Something was shifting behind his eyes. Something small, something real. Marcus, you told me I cannot do anything to you. I want to show you that you are very, very wrong. But more than that, I want to show you that what I am about to do is not purely about punishment. It is about something no amount of money can purchase for you, no matter how much your family has. It is called accountability. It means owning what you did, not hiding behind a last name or a board seat or a call to the mayor's office. It means looking honestly at what you did and deciding to do better. I let that rest in the air. Then I began the ruling. This court finds you responsible for reckless operation of a bicycle resulting in injury to a pedestrian, failure to render aid, and leaving the scene of an incident. First, you will pay full restitution to Gloria. That includes $214 in lost wages, $68 for her phone replacement, and $150 toward her medical expenses. The total is $432. It will be paid within 30 days, not 31, 30. Second, your bicycle privileges in this city are suspended for 90 days. If you are found riding during that period, the suspension doubles. Do not test me on that. Third, you will complete 60 hours of community service at the Aldrich Street Community Kitchen, located 1 block from the bakery where Gloria reports to work at 4 o'clock every morning. You will be there every Saturday from 8 until noon for 15 weeks. You will wash dishes, you will mop floors, you will serve meals to people who need them. The kitchen director will report your attendance and your conduct directly to this court. And Marcus, your attitude counts. I will be watching. Fourth, you will write a handwritten apology letter to Gloria, not typed, not written by your father and signed by you, written by you, in your own words, in your own hand, in ink on paper. It must be no less than 1 full page. It must be submitted to this court within 14 days for my review. I have read thousands of letters in this room, Marcus. I know immediately when something is genuine and when it is not. If it is not genuine, you will write it again, as many times as necessary. I turned to the father. Sir, you advised your son to withhold answers before this hearing. You attempted to use political influence, specifically the name of the mayor and your position on the city development board, to affect the outcome of a legal proceeding. You coached a witness during active testimony after being explicitly warned by this court not to do so. And you sat in this room and suggested with considerable confidence that your connections entitle you to a different outcome than anyone else. I am holding you in contempt of this court. Contempt means you have deliberately disrespected the authority of this court in a manner that cannot be overlooked and will not be ignored. My bailiff stepped forward. The father rose slowly. The gold watch caught the light one final time. And that smooth, polished confidence, that boardroom ease, the face that was accustomed to having the room rearrange itself around him, was entirely gone. In its place was something I have seen before and know by sight, the sudden, cold, concrete understanding that this room is not his office. This bench is not his conference table. I am not his subordinate, his assistant, or his inconvenience. The handcuffs clicked onto his wrists. They made a sound that seemed very loud in a very quiet room. And Marcus, for the first time since he had walked through my door, looked exactly like what he was, a frightened child. The hard expression was gone. The raised finger was gone. The performance was over. He was simply a boy watching his father being walked out of a room in handcuffs, and he did not know what to do with that. Sir, you will be held for 4 hours. You have a review hearing scheduled for November 3rd. At that hearing, you will answer fully for your conduct in this courtroom today. I waited until Marcus's eyes found mine. Your father is coming back. He is not going to prison. He is going to sit in a room for a few hours and think about his choices. I want you to do the same. Think about who you want to be, not who your money says you are, not who your father's name says you are, who you want to be, because that is the only thing in this life that truly belongs to you. He sat back slowly. He did not say a word, but his eyes were wet. 4 months later, my clerk brought me a note from the director of the Aldrich Street Community Kitchen. It said that Marcus had completed all 60 hours of his community service. It said that in his final 2 weeks, he had begun arriving before he was required to, without being asked, without anyone making him. It said he had learned the names of the regular visitors who came in for meals. It said that one Saturday morning, an elderly man had dropped his tray, and Marcus had been the first one there, the first to go to him, clean up carefully, and bring him a fresh, warm plate, and then sit with him for a few minutes. The director wrote, "He is a good kid. I think he just needed someone to show him that." I also received the apology letter. It was 3 pages long. In it, Marcus wrote that he had not understood, had genuinely not understood until he started working in that kitchen what it meant to need something and not have it. He wrote that he thought about Gloria every single Saturday when he walked past the bus stop on his way in. He wrote that he was sorry he had not stopped. He was sorry for what he had said to the judge. He wrote, "I didn't know how to be sorry before. I think I'm learning." I folded that letter and placed it in a file I keep in my desk drawer. I keep it there because some days this work is hard. Some days I sit on this bench and wonder whether anything I do in this room truly changes anything at all. And then I open that drawer and I read that letter again. Late in the afternoon, after the gallery has emptied and the bailiff has gone home and my clerk has shut off her computer and the room has grown quiet, I sometimes sit at this bench alone for a few minutes. I think about all the people who have stood in front of me over the years, the guilty and the innocent, the proud and the broken, the ones who changed and the ones who didn't. And I think about a boy in a cream-colored polo shirt and spotless white sneakers who stood up in my courtroom, raised his finger at me across this bench, and told me I was nobody. That boy reminded me why I still come to this room every morning. Because justice is not only about punishment, it is about reflection. It is about giving someone the chance, even when they haven't earned it, even when they don't yet deserve it, to see themselves clearly and choose something better. No amount of money buys that. No name, no board seat, no gold watch, just honesty, just accountability, just the quiet willingness to look at what you did and decide, without an audience, without anyone forcing you to be different. If the story moved you, If you believe that every child, regardless of their family's wealth or their father's name, deserves to learn what humility and empathy and accountability truly mean, then subscribe to this channel right now and share this story with someone who needs to hear it. Because that lesson does not belong only in a courtroom. It belongs everywhere. And in this room, everyone is equal. Every single one.